Hey AP Euro Nation, my name is Mr. Sulkowski. I teach AP Euro and AP World. For today's video, I'm going to be doing a quick review of AP Euro, the Renaissance, and leading to the Northern Renaissance. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. And if you really like the video, subscribe. All right. So again, this is a quick rundown of a quick review of the Renaissance. So AP Euro History Renaissance ideas. The Renaissance literally means the rebirth. The rebirth of what? Ancient Greeks and ancient Romans. Now this is the between the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans. There's the Middle Ages, or kind of also referred to as the Dark Ages. And during that time, it's very chaotic in Europe. The rest of the world is still kind of buzzing along. And then the Europe actually emerges back out of that. So what they do is they do like a rebirth of the ancient intellect of the ancient Greeks and Romans, and then they do their own rendition of it. So Renaissance literally means rebirth. Rebirth of what? Ancient Greeks and Romans intellect, society, politics. It influences religion later on after the Northern Renaissance, but reality is it's social, it's political, it's economic, it's everything. The main movement that goes along with the Renaissance era, which you need to know, is humanism. Now, it literally means to be as naturalistic and humanistic as possible. And then it also alludes to the idea of humanities, basically knowing all the different aspects of what makes someone like a cultured person today, or kind of like you guys in high school, how you're learning different points of view going forward in different classes. That's the idea of humanism. It applies to the art, tries to look as realistic as possible. During the Middle Ages, it's very 2D. In Renaissance Italy, especially, and then Europe, tries to look as realistic as possible. So it gives you that humanistic feature. Patriarch Francesco Patriarch was basically known as the Godfather, the father, the patriarch of the Renaissance, the OG of the Renaissance. He's known for creating a library of texts from the ancient Greeks and Romans, which everyone goes back to, and then uses that for information going forward. It's like the modern day Google search would be Patriarch's library. Italy is the place for the Renaissance for three major reasons. It's not that they just pick Italy just because they like, the Italian food. They pick it for the idea of it has the ancient history of the Roman Empire. So it has the actual setup from the Roman Empire. Economics, it is the powerful banking families that started off. And if you look at Italy, it's a peninsula, so it has land connections with the Roman Empire kind of going through there, but also has it surrounded by water. So it makes it accessible for trade through water, which is very important for the economics. And it is the focal point of one of the major religions in the world, which is the Catholic Church. So as these three things are really going for it, and the economics really spurts on the idea of the Renaissance. This is because one of the very powerful, these city-states that are basically Italy at this time are run by powerful banking families, and these banking families become very affluent, means they make a lot of money. One of the most powerful banking families, the Medici, is so affluent, they actually have so much money, they want to show off their money. Now, they can't go to parties and, rent Lamborghinis and stuff. So what they do is they get the best artists that they could possibly have, hire them, and make the best artwork to show off, or the best poetry, or the best music, and they kind of show off their affluence through that means. The godfather of the Renaissance, of the Medici, would be Lorenzo the Magnificent. He's known as the patron of the arts, meaning these artists were out throughout history. This is one of those times in history where artists can actually be supported by someone else to focus just on their art or their music, rather than trying to do their art and music on the side and trying to get enough money to survive. So this is the idea of patron or patronage of the arts. And the Medici is like the most powerful banking of Florence, and Florence is like the New York of the Renaissance, like the Paris of the Renaissance. Architecture for Filippo Brunelleschi, he creates this magnificent dome. Basically, you see it here underneath the Last Supper picture. And it's also known as a Duomo, and literally basically shows that architecture is basically kind of evolving back now into the ancient Greeks, because before that period of time, architecture was kind of like stagnant during the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, and now this is kind of like referring back to the ideas of domes and arches and so forth. So it's that kind of rendition, kind of reborn. Now, this also creates, during this time frame, there's also a new artistic form of art, of painting, which is called one-point perspective. And in this, it basically literally means that it's trying to look as 3D as possible by having one point to focus on with your eye. You can see in the Last Supper below me. And then through shading and geometry and so forth, it gives the impression that the picture's deeper than it is. And then your eye starts to kind of wander around. It's like your modern day, 3D virtual, glasses kind of thing. That's what they're trying to basically push forward in this Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci, classic. He creates the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper. That's so classic that you, as an AP Euro person, they're probably not gonna go into that much because it's so common knowledge. Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel. This is a picture of him. The idea of doing the paintings of all the scenes from the Bible on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Raphael, the School of Athens. You actually might get asked this. This is basically a painting of all the great thinkers and artists of the time, from the ancient Romans and Greeks, from Plato to Socrates, all these great people coming in together, and even Michelangelo and Raphael and Leonardo in this great picture of them together. Kind of shows you the idea of the Renaissance and how the Renaissance is like the 2.0 version of the ancient Greeks and Romans in your world. Baldassare Castellone, this will be showing you how to show society and how to live a life of a Renaissance person, and also referring to the idea of a Renaissance man. The book The Courtier, how to be someone of the court, literally implies all the aspects of what it means to be a Renaissance person. That you have to be good in poetry, but also just art, but also good in, physical activities like you guys today, PE, math, science, art. It's kind of like the idea that you guys are all being around to be a well-balanced Renaissance person. Politics, Nicolo Machiavelli basically creates one of the most famous guidebooks of the Renaissance, The Prince. And in it, basically, he points out the ideas of an outside view of the prince. And in it, he basically states the ideas of politics, of how to basically create and rule. And sometimes when someone's too fearful or evil, then that ruler has a revolution. And then if someone's too loving or passive, then they kind of get walked on as a leader. So it's basically the idea of that fine balance of leading, and it becomes one of the guidebooks for a lot of princes and rulers, especially in the Russian Empire after, of how to rule, right? Like you don't rule too loving, you don't rule too fearful, because there's that fine balance. And it's also where we get the Machiavellian ideas of politics, and that's kind of like the walking the line you see in politics today. Now, as the Renaissance is in Italy with these patrons and these very rich people, in Florence, and also that it's kind of like still in a little bubble. But as some inventions come along, it starts to spread to the north. And when the Renaissance spreads to the north, it becomes for everyday people like you and me kind of thing. Okay. We, at this time, Mr. Sulkowski couldn't afford to see, Da Vinci's work of art and stuff like that. But now through technology, you guys know that kind of thing. It starts to spread on. So as it goes up north, it starts to influencing. You see John Van Eyck's painting. It's down here in the right corner. It's more the Northern Renaissance painting. So there's two Renaissances for AP Euro. Renaissance is Italy. Northern Renaissance is everything going up to Flanders, up to Europe. The rest of the boot going up to Europe. And in it, you can see the differences of the darker colors for the Northern European Renaissance. Sorry, the Northern Renaissance. Because they use oil-based paint, so it's darker compared to like the Sistine Chapel here. You can kind of see a little bit on below it how it's darker from the oil-based paints. That's a whole other video I'll have for you for artwork. Now, the biggest thing since sliced bread or the internet or iPhones or apps or whatever you guys are on to right now was Johann Gutenberg's printing press. He's down here. Now, in this, it's kind of simplistic, but it's basically the internet of the world. And in it, basically, what you need to understand is that Gutenberg's printing press changes the way knowledge is being spread forever in history. Now, Gutenberg's printing press is very simple. There's these little pieces of metal plates that have little letters on them, etched in them. You kind of line them up on a board, you put some ink on them, you get a piece of paper, and you print it down. And you print it down, and you print it down. It's a printing press. You literally press it down. Now, why is this so important? It's because it is like our version of copy and paste. Before this time frame, in the Dark Ages and with the ancient Greeks and Romans, there were books and literature, but they were all handwritten. Now, during the Middle Ages, if you wanted a copy of the Bible, it would have to be hand copied by a monk in a monastery. Now, if I told you to copy the Bible by hand with a stack of papers, take you like months, right? Maybe a year if you really just wanted to chill out and kind of like take your time, right? So think about that. A book would take about 6 months, maybe a year to kind of copy and paste in that sense. Now, in Europe, being illiterate was a kind of a common thing. Now, you have to think of it two ways. First off, it's not that people didn't want to read. It's also the fact that if it takes 6 months to make this one Bible copy, guess what the price is going to be for that 6 months of my work to do one copy? It's going to be expensive. So you might even want to read in that time frame, but you wouldn't be able to afford to read because there's a circulation of the books was not really going on. Gutenberg's printing press makes books go from the thousands to the tens of millions. Now the idea of information is being just spread throughout Europe and it goes throughout the world, right? And now being able to read and have a book is accessible to everyday people or more average people. The artwork, that's the writing of it, and that's like the internet of its day. The engraving, the copy and paste or sharing of images that we do today will be Albert Durer's engraving, and in it basically you get a picture, you engrave the a metal plate with acid to create the image, and in it you can do copy and paste. This means that you don't have to be in Florence to check out this artwork or to read this manuscript or know this book. You could be somewhere else in Europe, pick up a book, see a picture, and it's basically in your hands. And this is also leads to the idea of the Protestant Reformation, because after this point in history, a person, as is going forward, Erasmus is one of these earlier people saying that the book, the Bible, should be translated into everyday vernacular, everyday language. At this time frame, from the ancient Greeks going on through the ancient Romans and then throughout the Middle Ages, the Bible was actually written in Latin. The only person that could read and speak Latin and understand it was the priest. So if you wanted to know what was in the Bible, you would have to go to church. It'd be read in Latin, then it would be translated to you, and you would get the message of God in Latin. Now, he's saying that this book, this Bible now should be copied and pasted, Gutenberg's version of it, but in everyday languages, right? Something you guys can understand. So in it, it's huge because now you could pick up the Bible, you could read it on your own and say, oh, this is what I think God means, or I think this is what Jesus means, or the prophets, or whatever, right? And this kind of leads to the opening of that new Protestant Reformation, and that's the beginning of that. Sir Thomas More was writing of the ideas of utopia. People were also trying to influence society at this point too. He's basically saying that we should create a quote-unquote heaven on earth. And his work, The Utopia, becomes the idea of what you guys say, utopian society today. And all these Renaissance people are trying to do their own rendition of the ancient Greeks and Romans, but they're trying to put their own spin on it and then push it forward to the next generation. So they're not just trying to redo the same stuff. They're trying to do that stuff, but incorporate it into going something further. And this is kind of his envision going forward. Again, if you like this video, like and subscribe. This is just for the Renaissance and the Northern Renaissance quick crash course. It's not everything, but hopefully you guys find this useful. All right, peace out.